But honestly, if anybody who's like really serious about it, I think like you really just do have to read it because, I've listened to audio, like your audio, I've listened to other videos, I make videos, but it's like you really don't get it as much as you do if you read it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Reality Transurfing podcast. I'm your host, Bootsy Greenwood, and today I'm joined with Sunny Sharma of Personal Mastery Quest on YouTube. Sunny, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Owen. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm thrilled to have you. I've seen a lot of your videos on YouTube, and you're doing a great job breaking down these ideas.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I would say the same to you.
Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate that. I think it's really neat that we all get to kind of riff on these ideas and talk about them from different angles and perspectives. I think that's really going to help us all to get better and learn more and be able to explain and express these ideas.
Yeah, I think the more and more creators that are, discussing this type of content, I think it's cool to see the different perspectives on the same kind of process, because you see Vadim's perspective, which I guess is like the raw perspective, the raw teaching, and then you see everybody else's perspective, and it's like out there, the thousands of people or the millions of people that are eventually going to come across this information. It's like, okay, whose perspective are you going to resonate with most, right? Like different perspectives will just open up different doors for other, the people out there that are listening to it. So I think it's a cool thing that we can all actually do this.
Yeah, I think so too. That's a really, really good point right there. Because like, not everybody's for everyone. Nobody's for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're gonna maybe find somebody that you kind of like, resonate with, or you like their specific style of teaching, or whatever. Somebody's a little bit more woo woo, or a little bit more grounded, or whatever you kind of go with, and just kind of get to expose yourself to that and all the other teachings. And it's exciting for me to be able to talk to everybody because I get to learn the most. And I get to like learn directly from your perspective. So if you don't mind, maybe sharing with us a little bit about how you came about transurfing and what it means to you.
Yes, of course. So, I kind of try to look at certain things as like milestones on my spiritual journey, or like really just like expanding myself on this personal growth journey. So, in the beginning, you come across just general self-development stuff. And that was me, right? I kind of was at a difficult time in my life where I thought I, hit rock bottom and like, didn't feel good about myself, didn't feel good about where I was in life. And I wanted success. I wanted the well-being. So I kind of embarked on the path of self-development, which is, I think, really where it starts for a lot of people. And then, I started to get into more things around spirituality, just really general spirituality. Like I read the book, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And then, I really just kept following that trail, started to open my mind up to what is actually possible for me. And, just a possibility of life, really. And then eventually, law of attraction and all those teachings, as I continued to follow it, I eventually came across Reality Transurfing on YouTube. And I remember just like looking at one video about it. And I think the thing that was being discussed was pendulums. And I don't know, it just like really clicked right away for me. Reality Transurfing was something that kind of made sense to me right away. And then I was like, okay, I got to get this book. Didn't know how big it was at that time, but like even when I got it, I was so excited. I just literally went through the entire thing multiple times and really just continued to practice it. And I was seeing like direct results on how, implementing these teachings and just kind of seeing how reality responds. And like the more you do it, the more your mind opens up to like what's possible, and you just continues to get deeper and deeper.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, so you started out, but that's Deepak Chopra, right? Or Deepak?
Deepak Chopra. Yeah.
I know I'm a terrible pronouncer. I'm from the South, so I don't pronounce things well. But that's deep. I read that book too. I read that book many years ago, and it was a great book. I liked it. I liked it as well. But very similar to you, as soon as I got my hands on transurfing, it just seemed to answer questions that I had been wondering for quite some time.
Yeah, I think it's like a great way to ease the conventional mind into understanding more of the spiritual concepts. So Reality Transurfing, I think, does that perfectly. It gives a rational explanation for a lot of the spiritual things, the things that really can't be explained rationally in life, right? Because life is not really logical. That's the way we're kind of grown up to believe that life is. But transurfing does a great way to kind of unravel a lot of your conditioning, a lot of your beliefs that you kind of bought into unconsciously throughout your entire life. And it starts to open you up to the real nature of life, start to like align your thinking, your energy to, I would say, like natural law, which is why it kind of simplifies your life and makes it easier for you to achieve your goals.
That's very well put. Yeah, I love that. I love the idea that, because it's true, you know, we go through life and we see these phenomenon that we're like, what the hell, man? You know, like how is he so nimble? How did he land on his feet?
Yeah.
And you see, you know, people suffer that don't deserve it, frankly, you know, and it's frustrating to be in a position like that because, like you said, you know, when we grow up, we're conditioned to think that life is logical, but there's obviously other laws that are governing the life we live.
Yeah, and it just really kind of helps you through like those techniques and those principles, just help you wake up to how to actually use those laws in your favor, right? Like start to work with nature rather than constantly fighting against it, fighting against your reality, but actually like working towards your goals, your desired reality in a way that it's actually possible for you to get there without struggling or grinding, right? Like without feeling like you're not being your authentic self.
Absolutely.
So I thought that part of it was just absolutely, you know, it really helps you to actually live your authentic path, like actually realize more about yourself and reality at the same time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because like what is like the Hermetic axioms, like as above, so below, as within, so without, you know, kind of that whole reflection type thing. And I think that, you know, even like the Kabbalion was maybe the first book that I read that dealt with natural law. And it's a good book, but it's really, really esoteric. And it's a lot harder to understand as far as like, you know, getting down to like these basic concepts. Like you're saying, like Vadim does a really good job of explaining these phenomena without being like super new agey, I guess, about it. Like it's a little bit more scientific, for sure. So as far as like putting the book into practice, let's talk a little bit about that. I'd love to hear about, you know, once you got the book, what stood out to you, what spoke to you, and what made you decide to start teaching about reality transurfing.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the first things that really stood out to me was how reality transurfing really encourages you to go your own way, right? Like to try to pave out your own path and live your most authentic life, you know, because just the concept of pendulums right in the beginning of the book talks about how there are beliefs and like belief systems and paradigms, worldviews, obligations, emotions, things that are just constantly being imposed on us. And if we are living life unconsciously, we'll just unknowingly and unwillingly just take those things and think of them as life, right? Like the concept of you have to, just like a very basic conventional worldview that we have is that, you know, you have to go to school, go get a job, and then, you know, work a certain job for the rest of like your life and then retire, blah, blah, blah. Whereas that's a worldview that is only going to function in your reality, like if you really buy into it. Whereas you could pave your own path entirely. You could like go your own way, follow your own passion. And, you know, so like that, because that's the kind of journey that I was on at the time. I was really trying to follow my passion. I was trying to find out what my passion was. So I had to like kind of isolate myself from a lot of the external things that I was kind of buying into and really ask myself, right? Like, what do I want out of this life? What will actually make me happy? Right? Am I actually going for this goal just to prove things to other people or to just make a lot of money or just do something that's not really going to bring me that happiness? Or am I doing it because my heart truly desires it? So that really kind of reeled me into this process. And I felt the need to kind of teach it because like I truly was passionate about this. I was always passionate about kind of talking about what I was learning on the spiritual journey anyway. But yeah, the theme of my YouTube channel really did become reality transurfing because I was just so passionate about this process. I was practicing it in the meantime as well. So it just kind of became a really cool like feedback mechanism too. Is like I was seeing the results, I would kind of teach it, you know, I would get feedback from the audience, everything like that. So it kind of just kept on going and now I'm here.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so excited to be talking with you too. It's aptly named the Personal Mastery Quest. I mean, that's if you find out who you are, right? Like it's the ancients say, like Timot Noske, know thyself. Then it should be,
Mhm.
based on the transurfing work, identifying your goal at that point should be kind of pretty easy.
Yeah.
It should just kind of come together naturally, like you're talking about, like nature works very almost effortlessly with the least amount of
Mhm.
resistance. So that's really cool. How that started to unfold for you.
Yeah, for me, it was, like the beginning process was, it gave me so much confidence to go on this entrepreneurial path. It gave me so much confidence staying within the uncertainty of life, right? Because with a general conventional worldview, we're made to think of uncertainty as very fearful. If you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, that is a cause for stress and fear. Whereas in truth, the more you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, the more you don't know what's going to happen a month from now, the more free you actually are. The more you actually open yourself up to a miracle, to anything, to infinite possibilities. So, reality transurfing really gave me the confidence in the beginning of my journey to really tread my own path without necessarily always being in fear and worry.
Right. You were taking care without worrying, as it says in the book.
Yeah,
Which is
absolutely.
great. That's something that, even, for me, after practicing this, it's still hard to kind of get past that, like we have these hooks in
Mm-hmm.
us from a very young age, like you're saying, like we need to go to school, we need to get a job, and that makes us a good person. That's what we think of as virtuous. But in reality, that couldn't be necessarily that much further from the truth as far as being that individual that we are and expressing ourselves in the world and your own path. That's so critical and beautiful too. Like that rustle of the morning stars that leads us to discover that, and then we start to walk onto our own path. And as you've done that, can you talk a little bit about how the world has supported you since you've started down this journey path?
Yeah, for sure. There have been, multiple instances where, like I didn't know how anything was going to work out. Like even in the beginning, right? So in the beginning of my journey, I knew I wanted to go my own way. I knew I had to follow my passion of just kind of talking about this kind of before I even got into reality transurfing, right? Like this was my last semester in college, and I didn't want to go the conventional route. I had a finance internship at the time, and I was going to go full time with that company, but I realized that like this is not where my happiness lies. This is not where what I really truly want to do. I was only doing that to make a lot of money or to prove my worth to other people that I could go this route and whatnot. And so my journey was a lot really uncertain because I quit that internship and I chose to apply to 0 jobs getting out of college. And
Wow.
then my whole vision was that I will figure it out. I will, at that time I had started a blog and I was like, I'm just going to go with this. I'm going to keep following my heart. I'm going to keep following my passion. And then really soon after I got into reality transurfing, which gave me that extra boost. And so really throughout the entire time that I've been practicing transurfing, it has been so perfect for me to practice it because like I truly was living in that uncertain mode every single day where my life could have gone an infinite amount of directions, but it really started to go my way. Like life started to come to support me in my endeavor to go my own way, from having no source of income and not knowing where it would come from, really like things kept presenting themselves. Like, so I do personal coaching and I do a lot of courses right now, right? That's how I like kind of support my journey. But in the beginning, when I hadn't even thought of coaching ever. And, I was just like in this phase where I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was like, kept, just staying balanced and going forward. And, this woman like randomly reached out to me and was like, "Oh, do you offer personal coaching? I would just love to be personally coached by you. And I'm a coach that helps other coaches build their coaching businesses." And she's like, "I'll help you with that if you help me with transurfing." So like you see like things like that you could never have expected would happen end up happening if you really just stay focused, stay balanced, and continue to move forward. Like that opened up a whole avenue for me where I did start a coaching and I got into this whole like building this entire practice. But it would have never happened if I kept in my old shell in a fearful way, like, oh, I'm just going to go the conventional route and not really follow my path. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. No, I think it's really brave for you to do that, for you to say, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to do this anyway because, well, I think you'd probably regret not doing it probably too for the rest of your life if you hadn't, because you just been, or maybe you go and do the conventional thing for, God, who knows, 2 weeks, 6 months. I don't know, ...
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
and then you just get so sick of it that you just like flip out one day, you know, just like,
And I mean, think
quit.
about it. Like, that's the state that a lot of people live in, you know, it's like, you don't follow your heart. You don't follow what you truly want to do. And then you settle for something that you think you need to be doing, right? In reality transurfing, Vadim Zeland tells multiple times that there's no such thing as enforced necessity. So a lot of people think that they have to go to their work, to their job, because otherwise they won't have any money, or they can't follow their passion right now because it's not the right time. But those are just assumptions being made in this present moment. You have no idea how your life would unfold if you today decided to follow your passion and maybe like still worked in your job. No one's telling you to quit your job right away, but it's like, you have no idea if you just went your own way, like, and just truly followed your heart, how things would unfold from that moment onward. So it's like, when we buy into these kind of pendulum concepts of enforced necessity, where we have to do something or we're obligated to do something, then we don't even give ourselves the chance to actually explore the possibility of what we can do with our lives.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. And yeah, that's a good thing to note too, is like, he does talk a little bit about, hey, have a backup plan, you know, don't put yourself out there further than you can, you know, than you can manage. Like, you know, like, don't necessarily just start with quitting your job. Like, start pursuing your passion. If that's taking a class about something you want to learn about and you want to, you know, switch over careers or whatever, start to implement that. But you don't have to do some extreme weird thing, because we're traveling these lifelines, and you know, it's pretty hard to skip from one that's, you know, here to one that's further away, just in a snap, right? Like, you want to kind of like gradually maybe get there, but that's so good. People don't understand, I don't think, because these obligations are pushed on us, and so we think, oh well, I'll do that later whenever I've got X amount of money in the bank or whatever.
Yeah, we don't, you know, anytime you kind of think about following your passion or your dream life, a lot of people automatically think of it in a fearful way, as if they almost all automatically start projecting a path where they do embark on that journey and then fail, rather than, you know, thinking of, oh, what would happen if I actually succeeded?
Wow.
You know, what would actually happen if life came to support me? So they don't even give themselves an opportunity for that, to even imagine that path. Because really, like, in that state of fear, it's hard to do so. That's why I think Vadim in the book constantly says, have a plan, have a backup plan. Where in reality, I always tell people, right, is if you truly believe that you can put yourself on edge, right, and just go for it without having any backup plan, while staying balanced, while not falling into that fearful state, then life truly will come around to support you. However, most people, I believe, especially when we're just starting out this journey, you know, we need to ease into it. So having a backup plan will help, because if we do go all in, and then in that moment, we're like in a state of fear and anxiety, then what will be reflected back to us is that fear and anxiety in the form of negative circumstances. So yeah, I'd say if you're truly like that fearless person and you can stay balanced within uncertainty, go for it without a plan B. Life will come support you. However, if you really want to ease yourself into it, which is completely fine too, you know, you don't have to just do everything at once. Ease yourself into it, but like really consciously continue to follow your heart rather than just settling in the middle. Just follow this process through, and you truly will transform. The self that you call you will transform, and it will come with its corresponding reality, which will also look different, just like the change that you made in yourself.
Wow, that's great, Sonny. That's good stuff. Yeah, I 100% agree with it. It's like it's a little bit of advanced to go full bore, so to speak, into whatever it is. But it's absolutely doable, but you have to be unshakable in that uncertainty. And that's really hard for us, especially here in the West, because of all these pendulums and all these, ideas that have been set about before us. Our whole entire culture is built on the, industrial revolution in 1900, and our reality is changing pretty fast too, as far as what the future holds. So it's going to be really interesting to see.
I think, a lot of people talk a lot of trash about social media and how it's kind of like, making us compare a lot and everything to other people, which is true, right? Like a lot of people compare themselves to each other. But I think one of the things that social media has really opened us up to is that you really don't have to live that normal conventional life, that it is possible for you to live your best life while not necessarily struggling or, efforting to maintain it. You see all these people on social media like living their best lives, and it's good if you don't compare, but at the same time take inspiration from them that yes, they went their own way, and that is possible for you too. It's equally possible for you too.
Yeah, it's a great point. I completely agree. The one thing that I would add as a note to anybody is just that keep in mind that social media is a highlight reel. That's not necessarily everybody's day to day. And in fact, if you look at mine, it's definitely not. I'm not going to post me, doing editing on my computer for 4 hours because that's just boring.
Absolutely.
Nobody 100%. Wants to see that, So, it's good not to compare yourself to others too, because you are a completely distinct, entity all to your own. You have your own soul's frail, your own expression. So that's the thing that sets you apart the most as an individual too. So, there's no sense in doing all this comparison, but I agree with you. I think that, it's a great way to get out there. And it also proves that people are much closer than we think. If somebody sends me a message, I will always respond, and I imagine there's a lot of people who have, huge followings who do the same. I know Dane Cook does the same thing,
Wow.
So there's a lot of people that are far more accessible, as a result of social media than ever used to be, because you have to jump through, this person and that person and their publicist or so on and so forth. And instead, I think a lot of people just manage their own social for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. So, social does create a lot of pendulums on its own. However, that's why I think, a lot of people when they get into reality transurfing, and I get this question all the time about pendulums, how can we avoid pendulums and whatnot? But I think the point is not to avoid pendulums, rather than to actually live life so consciously that you can navigate your way through these pendulums and really still maintain your individuality, maintain your own authenticity, and continue to embark on your own path.
So my question is, when we first had a quick pre-interview, we were talking about that you thought that transurfing was really good as a holistic sort of practice, and you were already on your path to self-discovery before you came across transurfing. So what morsels did you discover, and did it bring together for you, and how does it sort of work in a holistic sort of framework for you?
Mm-hmm. So there's this one quote from transurfing that I think, and I forget which chapter it is from exactly, but this one quote I think summarizes the entire book in just a few lines. And you know how long that book is, like 700 something pages. Mm-hmm. I think all of that information is basically just an explanation for what this one quote is. And actually, I have it right. This has been my phone background for so long because I constantly read this. I remind myself of this all the time, because once you get this, I feel like you get the essence of transurfing. So I'll just kind of read the quote out and give you my explanation of what I think the quote means. So the quote starts with, "There's nothing to guard or conquer. There's nothing to fear or be anxious about. As long as I do not attribute excessive meaning to anything, the layer of my world will not be distorted by excess potentials. Instead, I abandon the struggle and go with the flow. I am empty, so there is nothing that can be hooked into. Although this does not mean that I am hanging suspended in a vacuum. Finally, if I want it, the freedom of choice is mine. There is no need to struggle anymore. I just calmly walk my path and take what is mine. Unlike shaky confidence, this is a new state of conscious, composed coordination." So see, those couple of lines right there, I think they grasp the essence of transurfing so well. And it begins with, just getting you into the attitude of there's nothing to guard. There's nothing to conquer, right? There's nothing that you have to control or worry about or fear. You are free will. You, at any moment of your existence, have at your disposal infinite realities, infinite different alternative ways from how your current situation can play out. And you do have influence over that process. But as long as you are still trying to, guard or something, or you're controlling reality, that perspective kind of stays away from you. It stays hidden. It stays like away from your power. So it begins straight away with, getting into an attitude of there's nothing to conquer. There's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to avoid, because you are free will. And in any single moment, you have the ability to exercise your free will. And a large part of that is not attributing excessive meaning to anything. When we are obsessed with a certain outcome or attached to something in our current reality, that it starts to actually bound us. It binds us to that particular reality rather than exercising our ability of free will and choosing the reality that we desire. I think a lot of us, when we have this sort of attachment and this sort of obsession with certain things, certain people, even certain goals, where that attachment is really coming from is the resistance to potentially not having those things. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
So it's like that resistance is what charges us up, and it's that emotion that keeps us attached to that reality. It keeps us manifesting that reality like in perpetuation more and more. So I think when you stop attributing excessive meaning to anything and look at all infinite options that you have at your disposal as equally possible for you, then you place yourself in that position where you really can just choose and start moving towards that.
Yeah, it's amazing when he says that you can just choose, because that sounds so simple, but it also and it is, but it also it kind of like it short circuits the Western brain. It's just like, what?
Yeah,
I can just choose. Because people in New Age and law of attraction and the self-help, whole movement in general, it's like you got to create your reality. You've got to manifest your reality. You've got to do something. You have to make it as if it didn't already exist.
Yeah.
But in transurfing, he's saying every single one of those realities is already exists in the space of variations.
And every single one of those realities is attached, you can say, or is inseparable from the person within that reality that you think you are. Does that make sense? So it's like, in Tufti, this is where I think he goes even further to expand on this. And I don't know if we're getting a little too advanced here, but
no, let's do it.
When we say we can just choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
We choose the reality we want to live. Who is the one choosing? Right? So if it's you, it's not necessarily Owen that is choosing. It is the consciousness within which Owen is the person, right? Within which there is this particular version of Owen. But that's what we call the small self, or what we can call the ego or the world self. So what Tufti teaches us, Vadim teaches us in Tufti, is to detach from the perspective of your small self and expand, right? Come into the perspective of what we usually refer to in spiritual teachings as the higher self, or you can call awareness or consciousness. Now that is the perspective that chooses. That is the being, you could say, that essentially has the ability to launch a new movie or a new film role. Whereas the small self that might believe that he is creating reality is not necessarily creating reality, but he's actually a part of reality, a part of the movie that is already playing. Right? Like that. Does that make sense? What we kind of also learned in Tufti?
Yeah, dude, that's really, really a good insight. It's not just it's the version of you that goes along with that particular script.
Exactly.
That is really, really
So earlier on when we were talking about how, transurfing really allows you to have this holistic spiritual approach and kind of wake up to your true self. That's what I kind of meant, is transurfing provides the framework that you can follow that can awaken you to this larger perspective. In the book itself, he constantly gives this example of this fly trying to ram its like head into the window.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you know, that's the small self trying to create reality. Whereas now if you want to access the greater perspective is the fly simply taking like a few steps back and realizing that the open window is right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the fly gaining the perspective of the higher self, of the consciousness within which this movie is playing, right? So that's like where you see the open window. You see the alternate reality that you want manifest that is available to you.
Oh, dude, that's
so as long as we
so
continue to think that we are the small self, like, you know, trying to fight it and create reality and whatnot, we'll continue to kind of struggle. But when you start to progressively detach yourself from your own like thoughts, emotions, from your own like identification with your body and mind as well, then you start to have this greater perspective, and then you start to access more of your free will. In Transurfing, just to kind of sum this up, is like Vadim says, your level of free will be proportionate to your level of awareness. So the greater you access, you know, the more you access greater levels of awareness, the more of your natural free will you gain access to. And that's free will is, you know, where you choose the reality that you want to live.
Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, it's a lot of these attachments and aversions that keep us stuck, you know, in the reality that we are currently experiencing, when if we could take a step back or see from a higher perspective, then we'd have access to all these other options, because we'd be able to identify them. So more of an observer, of course, but still participating in the game. That's a really good insight. Man, yeah, I like that a lot. So is that what you,
Thank you.
Is that some of the
stuff?
Yeah,
because, absolutely. That's like the realization that I've been kind of waking up to now also. And, you know, just to finish this the last bit of the quote is that perspective, right? Like gaining access to it more and more. I think that's how you abandon the struggle, because you only struggle as long as you are identified with this small self, with this particular reality. When you start opening up to the perspective of having infinite different realities at your disposal every moment, and you being the consciousness within which all this drama is taking place, then there is nothing to struggle, because then you can always just change the channel. You know, then finally, if you do want it, the freedom of choice is yours. There's no need to struggle. You just calmly walk your path, keep making your choice, and take what is yours. So there's no need for confidence in a perspective like that, because there's no insecurity.
Right.
You just know that you are free will, and you can create anything that you desire, anything that you want. And like that kind of has, you know, that perspective makes life magical. It's like now you literally have infinity at your disposal. What are you going to do with it?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of things you could do with it. A lot of options there with infinity. Like,
exactly.
Can't even comprehend what infinity is. So, yeah.
And sometimes we still like continue to subject ourselves to just a common routine, because it's all based on fear, you know? But like when you start through transurfing or any other spiritual process, really opening up to this perspective, then you have more courage. Right? Courage is automatically born within you. Then you can follow your own path. Courage, there's no such thing as people who are courageous or people who are not courageous. Just people who are more certain about what the truth is, whose perspective is more aligned with the truth of reality. So that's like a natural byproduct of raising your awareness. And that's what I think transurfing also does really well for you.
That's super cool. Yeah, because I mean, courage doesn't mean that, you know, you're not nervous or a little scared.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it means that you're just going to do it anyway, even amidst that, because it's okay to, you know, not understand something or be uncertain or unsure. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we are able to walk into just whatever reality without concern, you know, without a bunch of fear and worry, that's going to make a huge difference. As we go forward, man. That is so good. That's such a good takeaway. Like when you are teaching, when you're teaching people these techniques, are you finding that they're catching on to this pretty quickly?
I think people have different sort of paces that they go at. And I think that's all based on the desire. So I think for me, right, like a lot of people ask me, how are you kind of, like, how do you understand transurfing this well? Or, like, how do you have this perspective at such a young age and whatnot? And I think it's just like the desire that you have for wanting to know the truth, for wanting to develop spiritually. So the people that I work with, I'll see that some people really grasp these things really quickly, whereas some people kind of go at their own pace and take their own time. And sometimes I really try to gauge, it's like when I'm working with someone individually, it's like what level they're currently at. And I don't even like to think of it as levels, because it's not like someone is ahead of another person.
Sure.
It's simply just where you currently are in your journey. And so I try to like assess where they currently are in their journey and which perspective might be most beneficial to them. Because I think the way that I'm talking right now, right, like on this podcast, maybe I wouldn't have understood some of these perspectives, and they wouldn't have been relevant for me in my journey like 2 years ago. So like I look at the person and just kind of think what would be most beneficial to them, and then try to take that approach. But yeah, I think everybody learns at their own pace, and like whatever stage you are at in your journey right now is like the most beautiful stage, because that is like the stage for your expansion, right? So like, where are you going to take it from there? And all that depends on is your desire. Do you have the desire to grow? Do you have the desire to kind of simplify your life away from the things that aren't really bringing you happiness, so that you can direct that focus towards this expansion that is so calling you from within? That's all that matters. And I think people really handle that in different ways. So yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So, I mean, you're starting out brand new and you just started, learning about this idea of transurfing. How do you guide someone from the beginning stages to get to this point? And sure, they're going to take their time, and everybody's different, and they're going to understand certain ideas, differently, but, just kind of like, as a short form version, like, what do you think the steps are as to understand these ideas, these principles in transurfing?
I think one of the main things is that you have to have a goal, right? And you have to have a clear goal. You have to know what you want, because I think that is really the beginning point for all the motivation, all the drive, all of the rest of the story can only be written after you are clear about what you want. So when you look at the world and most of the people in it, you see a lot of people not really knowing what they truly want. And see, when you're in a state of not knowing what you want, anything that you get will make you unhappy. So, and until you know exactly what you want, a real process can't come to you. Like, opportunities can't come to you. And they're just going to keep creating that randomness in your life, which then perpetuates your frustration and unhappiness. So one of the main things that I always tell people is, get really clear about what you want, and take an inventory with your current life, and see, right, what am I currently spending my time doing that is not bringing me happiness, that is not bringing me any sort of joy or fulfillment. When I just started, I did this whole like audit on my life in a couple of months, like throughout a couple of months, and like just started to cut out a lot of the things that I was wasting my time, my money, and my energy on, and they weren't even like bringing me any sort of joy or fulfillment. Matter of fact, they would maybe even create some like difficulty for me in the long term. So, when you get clear about what you want, start to cut off a lot of the things that aren't going to help you achieve that, aren't going to help you organize your energy in such a way that you can actually manifest that desired reality, and then continue to follow that path. I think as you follow that path of trying to get what you want while implementing all these techniques and everything, like, visualization, staying balanced, avoiding a lot of the pendulum influence, and obviously using the principle of coordination and the advantage method and Tufte. I think as you go through that journey, it will just keep unfolding. Your own realizations will continue to deepen, and your unfoldment of your desire will also continue to just keep going. That's like, I think what transurfing is really good for, is just going for what you want, and then also at the same time deepening your awareness of the self, of who you really are.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's really, really good. So as far as like clarifying your goal and starting there, What do you think is, if somebody's having a hard time with that, do you have any ideas or techniques or anything for somebody who's like, well, you know what, Sonny, I really just, I don't exactly know what I want. Where would you start with someone at that point, you think?
I know because I've been there too. Like, at one point I had no idea I was going to go into this field at all. Like, think about it. Like, I was a business major in college, and I was going towards that career in finance. So I remember not knowing at all what I was passionate about, but I was like, okay, I have to go for what I'm passionate about. But I'm like, okay, but what am I passionate about? I have no idea. Right. The only thing I knew at that time was that I really enjoyed reading. Like, that was the only thing. Like, if you gave me all the money in the world at that time and were like, okay, what would you do every day? I'll probably just read. And so really that's all I did. Like, your passion, your purpose comes to you in like breadcrumbs, and you have to just follow that one step that is ahead of you. And how do you know what that one step is? In any moment, ask yourself, right? Like, what will make you most joyful right now? Like, what would you do every single day that truly will make your life a holiday? And then just start doing that one activity. And the thing is, like, after that, I started reading and whatnot a lot and spending a lot of my time doing that. And then that eventually evolved into a blog, which eventually evolved into a YouTube channel, which eventually evolved into, coaching and courses and all that stuff. But have the courage to follow just one step at a time. And while you do that, while you follow your joy, which will eventually turn into a passion, while you do that, start to establish some sort of meditation or mindfulness practice. I think people getting into transurfing, your transurfing practice will deepen and bring you so much more results if you start meditating alongside of it. It's not necessary, but I really recommend it, because think about it this way. People don't know what they want to do in their lives, right? Because throughout their entire lives, all their attention has gone to the outside of them, to external reality, right? Now, what meditation is taking, for just a few moments of their day, taking attention away from everything external and bringing it inside, bringing it within. So within meditation, just one of the benefits of it is you find out so much about yourself, about your own thoughts, about your own desires, about your own like self-sabotaging, like you constantly, just all these patterns. The world opens up to you when you direct your attention within. So if you really don't know what you want to do, number one, follow your joy, continue to just follow that breadcrumb trail. And then two, meditate as much as you can throughout the day, maybe like in bunches every single time, like 5 minutes at a time. But this whole purpose and passion will start opening up to you if you just do these two things.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, I love that. That's great. For me too, I've been there right where you were. Like, if I could do anything, I would just read books and like learn stuff, because that's what I truly was passionate about for like 5 years, and still am. But, I guess you get to a point where, you need to start giving back too. It's like, I've been trying to read a stack of books on my bedside table for like 3 weeks now, and I haven't quite gotten to it yet, but I know that I will. I'm actually reading a book right now called Creating Money that my friend gave me, and she was like, here, this is like, awesome. It's like transurfing, but for money, And
that's cool. Let me know how that is, because I'll also check that out.
Yeah,
I like the different perspectives on like the different spiritual perspectives on the topic of money.
Yeah, I do too. I love those. I love all the different perspectives, because I feel like, as I view a certain idea from a bunch of different sides and points of view, then it just helps me to understand and deepen my own understanding of it.
To create your own explanation.
Exactly. And then I can synthesize all of these different perspectives and kind of grab onto one, and sort of have my own spin on it, so to speak.
I think that's one topic that people are probably a little disappointed when they were getting into transurfing like that, because Vadim didn't really expand on that a lot at all. There's like a short little chapter on it, but I know that's like one of the biggest reasons people get into creating your own reality, So the thing he says is it's so true. And I've kind of found this in my own experience, that when you follow your goal, trust me, the money you need will find you. Mm-hmm. But like, again, the goal has to come first. If you continue to delay your goal because you want the money first, that you think, okay, once I have the money, then I'll go for this goal, then you're going to miss out on the money and the goal.
Right.
Whereas if you go for the goal, money will find you. What you need will always find you, but you have to go for the thing first.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, because otherwise you're chasing two rabbits at the same time, and we won't catch either one, just like you said. And then you're also prioritizing something that's really meaningless in life, which is money, which is just a symbol for, an energy exchange. And, we could get super deep about that, but like just money kind of comes of its own accord. Love would be the other thing that he doesn't talk about too much in the book, or give very much of an explanation about, which are probably the two main things that people are the most concerned with, romance and
what
finances.
Was the second thing?
Love, money. Like romantic love.
Oh, love. Yeah, for sure. You know what? I thought about that once, and I was like, the reason for that, I think, is that if you are implementing all the techniques that are in transurfing, right? Like if you're actually living your life according to that entire process, then you will never struggle with those two things, right? Because a lot of the relationship problems and the love problems that a lot of people have is because of their own lack of self-worth and lack of understanding of how these energetic exchanges happen with other beings. And same with the money thing. It's like, well, differently with the money thing, but same in regards to if you follow the process, like that part of reality will also be taking care of you. So yes, he definitely could have expanded on that more, but I understand why he just didn't do it. And he just kind of laid out the other principles, because it was like, okay, if you just follow these, those will take care of itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because a lot of that is based on comparison anyway, right? Like you look at somebody else who's in a romantic relationship, or somebody else who has a fancy car or whatever, and you think, I want to be like that. And then you start to compare yourself, and that's where excess potential can be created as well. And so obviously that particular style of relationship or style of luxury or lifestyle or whatever may not be exactly for you. I mean, you might want something similar to that someone else has, but if you're really being honest with yourself and you're really observing who you are, then I think you'll have the ability to define something that's very specific for you.
100%. Really well said. That's like the pendulum standards that get created. And then we compare ourselves to those standards of like how much money you should be making, or, what kind of relationship you should have. And then you kind of ditch your own authenticity, ditch your own theme of life, your own phase. And then obviously that's going to result in unhappiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I like what you said too about with this inner work, we do need to look inside of ourselves. However we do that, meditation. I did meditate for 5 years, something like that, which I don't actually meditate anymore, but I do other practices. Like I do other practices. But I, not the typical meditation, because what happened to me actually, and this is, probably a little bit advanced. If you're first starting out, absolutely, like cultivate your attention, focus on that, and listen to the inside of yourself, but I made it to where meditation became an escape for me. After several years, like it became like the only part of my day where I was, present, and the rest of my day, I would just like let my mind run free. And it's like, well, look, dude, if I have two screens and I need to focus my point on the center of awareness, like it says in Tufti, or Tufti, however it's pronounced. Maybe I mispronounced that entire, oh God. But,
too late.
Yeah, right. But, yeah, if you can be at that place all the time, then it's not like, oh, well, and so certainly, as we discover and learn from ourselves and listen to ourselves and what our needs are, we may have all kinds of different practices that we individually implement, whatever works. Good enough is perfect. From the,
I agree.
From the perspective of transurfing,
I agree. But that's why, I think a lot of people who meditate for very long, some people really sometimes ask me, it's like, why isn't my meditation practice deepening? And I think large part of that reason is because like throughout the day, then you're unconscious. Like a lot of people who meditate, it's like for 15 minutes a day or an hour a day, they'll be good. Like they'll focus and they'll go deep within, but then for the rest of the day, they're just on autopilot. Yep. So like perfectly, like as you said, I think the best practice would be like, okay, you meditate and you do what you got to do, whatever keeps you in that aligned state. And then also throughout the day, just be much more aware of all your little movements you just have control of your attention. I think anytime your attention is under your conscious control, then you are present. And in that state, you are a little more detached from your personal worldview. And so, just kind of tying back into the regular, like what we just spoke about before, in Tufti, even Vadim says, in order to compose reality, you have to, first become present. Because once you become present, what is happening is that you're detaching from your small self point of view perspective, and you just become one, let's just say, with the higher self point of view, which is the one that has the ability to change the film roll. So really, like, by becoming more present throughout the day, you truly give yourself more control over your fate, over the way your life pans out.
Yeah, that's really well said. Yeah, that's great. I loved that book. Like, it blew my mind. When I first started reading it, I was like, this is kind of written weird, man,
Yeah,
like the weird goddess, I think it's kind of cool, though. A lot of my friends have really liked it who, maybe wouldn't have liked transurfing as much, just because it is written in an interesting way, that's sort of,
and so long too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot shorter. It's a little bit more digestible as well. And I like the idea of like our films overlapping and stuff, and sort of the glitches and things that can happen.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's a little out there for sure, but even with like people who are doing like the randonaut thing, I tried that the other day. The idea is that like you generate this random location via a map, and you're basically challenging the world if it was like a game situation or simulation, or if or if it was predetermined, then you would have never wound up in this particular place that was randomly generated by some Shangri-La bot or something. It's via Telegram. It's an interesting little thing.
But how come, like, how do you know that wasn't just part of the
exactly
Oh,
because exactly, so it continues to go and go and go. The idea is that it should randomly put you in a place that you would never mentally know to even go to, so you don't even know it's there.
That's interesting.
So and so I wound up at like some weird shed, in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like I was video messaging a friend of mine, and I was like, well, here's my second location, because I did 3 locations, and I was like, I'm here at my second location, and it's this weird shed in the middle of the woods, and my friend sends me a message back, and he's like, dude, worst advice ever, but you gotta go in that shed. And I honestly thought he was going to tell me not to. I was like, worst advice ever, don't go. I was like, well, it's unlocked, so I'm going to look in there. And so I did peep around and whatever. But it was a very exhilarating experience, and just for fun to try something like that, and like, why not? Because there are all of these options and these alternatives that are available to us. But the most important thing is like what you've touched on, which is we need to be able to hear what it is we want truly. And at that point, it's really, that's where the momentum starts. And if we continue to follow our bliss and continue to just walk down that path, have you had the experience where whatever goals that you have set for yourself, you have actually found better goals and accomplish them?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I would like to say is, like, it really seems like you're having fun with the process. And I think that's such a crucial aspect of it. Like, trying out these things and, really committing to them, like that shows you that the desire, the thing that we were talking about before, it's like your evolution depends on that desire to grow. So it's really cool to see you having a lot of fun with the process. But, yeah, I think, when I just started out this journey, for me, it was all about just, success, material success, and, like money and the traditional well-being. And I thought those were my real goals. And then eventually I started to kind of ease those into more self-development goals, where it was like, okay, I would like to be here in my business at this point, or like me personally, I would like to be here, here, and here. But I think the journey keeps on kind of taking me towards the path of just like expanding my awareness more than anything, and kind of living true to my purpose, and really like giving back. So, let's just say, as compared to in the past, where I had an income goal, or I had like a particular business goal, now I'm more like, now my goals are more oriented with just, doesn't matter how much success I achieve. I never want to sacrifice my peace of mind, my meditative quality that I have in life, and like my authenticity. So sometimes, because I make daily videos on YouTube, sometimes, it's really easy to go for the like the titles with the views and all that stuff. And every single time I notice myself doing that, I kind of reel back and I try to just make videos from the heart again. So my goal is way more now just to really stay on my most authentic path, continue to follow my joy, and then just mainly develop spiritually. I want to realize more and more of who I really am and realize more and more of what my power is. And that's like my most important thing. And I think obviously naturally like success and well-being and everything I'm seeing is just coming as a natural byproduct of that. And I really do believe that, when you are on this path of your true goal, well-being is just like a theme of your life, right? Like things really do start to work out for you more effortlessly. Like now more than ever, even if I just look like 2 years back, I noticed that there's like this sense of ease and flow to my life that there was never before. Before it was like constant comparison and judgment and criticism, self-criticism and everything, and just grinding against the flow. Now I'm just like sensing that there's this ease and there's this flow. So just this aspect of life, I think is so valuable and crucial that no amount of material success or anything like that can be traded for it. So I think that's why like one of my main goals is to truly just stay true to myself, to continue to expand and to continue to grow spiritually.
I think that's beautiful. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I can so relate because for like most of us, we have material goals, and it's like, but how do you really even materially like account for the type of success where you wake up in the morning and you just have tons of amazing people around you who want to hang out and just
exactly, yeah,
like the relationships, the depth in relationships that probably have been the biggest, the most amazing aspect of this whole journey for me is like meeting people along the way and really connecting with them, and that depth and that joy. I don't think there's an amount of money that would be worth that feeling, and I
exactly. There's nothing that can measure that.
No, there's not. It's immeasurable, and also getting to share and talk to like you and Renee and Angel and everyone that I've been able to speak with about reality transurfing that already understands these ideas, and it's like there's no fight there. Like we just immediately just click and then just start talking about these ideas, and then we've got tons of amazing evidence and I've seen like goals that I would have never even set for myself accomplished that have just been incredibly like moving and powerful and emotionally like like I would have never even known to ask for that, right?
Yeah, sure. I heard this one thing recently that said, it's not about what you get in this life or what you get or what you create even, but rather the experience that you're extracting from your life. And I think that's so true. Like you could, have all the material well-being, but then still sleep through it, still just live in your mind through that entire experience. Whereas you can like have nothing, but still be fully awake and, extract the richness of that experience. And that would still be worth more than, as opposed to the other scenario. So that's also like another initiative, that kind of transurfing woke me up to, is this not sleeping through life, but rather really just like fully being aware of what is going on, being aware of the nature of this experience and appreciating it regardless of if it is the conventional mind thinks it's good or bad. Because if it is here right now, that means that, you can say higher self or your consciousness is allowing this experience. So it is a perfectly legitimate experience. So don't resist it, but rather wake up to it, appreciate it, ponder, why it's here, what it's trying to teach you, learn the lesson, extract that experience, and then just allow it to pass. And then obviously manifest what you want.
Yeah, that's great. Man, that's good. I'm like high from talking to you, dude.
No, this is a good conversation. I love talking to you too. I think that's one of the best things about the Transurfing group. Like I could have never imagined this many people, like connecting with this many people that kind of are on this similar vibe. So it's amazing talking to you guys.
No, it is amazing. And every time I get a message in like the group chat or whatever, I'm just like blown away, and everyone that I'm so excited to be able to host this show because I get to talk to everyone and in depth, like we're for an hour. So it's really neat.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your time. This is Sunny Sharma. I'm pronouncing that right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I have to be sure. Yeah. I'm doing my best here. They don't teach us to. You have to take like an advanced class to get rid of your accent here in the South. But Sunny is on YouTube, Personal Mastery Quest, Instagram, Personal Mastery Quest.
Personal Mastery Quest.
And is your website also Personal Mastery Quest? Okay. And also
Personal Mastery Quest. PersonalMasteryQuest.com.
Awesome. PersonalMasteryQuest.com. You can find Sunny through all those avenues. Please do. And check out TransurfingTV. You can see some of his work on there, as well as many, many other collaborators from Transurfing. Excuse me. I'm probably going to have to redo this outro. But I just really appreciate it. Or maybe I won't. Drop importance, right? But
hey, yeah, maybe we could just go with it.
Just let it go.
But no, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time. We had a little bit of funny technical difficulties in the middle of it, so thanks for being patient and working around that. I really appreciate it, and I had a blast talking to you.
Absolutely, no problem. I feel the same.
Awesome, thank you. And that's going to do it, folks, for this episode of the Reality Transurfing podcast. Be sure to check out TransurfingTV and head on over to transurfing.us to go deep. Check out the books. Check out Renee's Instagram at reality_transurfing. And you can follow me on Instagram at Bootsy Greenwood. If you want to help out with the production of this podcast, and I have other gifts in store, go on over to patreon.com/BootsyGreenwood. Thanks so much for checking this out, and we'll see you guys next time.